Okay, okay, Rabotai. Shavua Tov, and welcome back as we are having the zechut to start volume 12 of Tzurba MRabanan. Okay, still dealing in the Hilchot of Archaim. Today we're going to be starting Hilchot Kriyat HaTorah. When I went through the shir preparing for it, I found it very fascinating. A lot of things we just do. We don't know the sharish for it. We don't know how it's done, what it's done. We just stop do things, which is fine. But as you grow up, you want to know why you're doing what you're doing. And I think this is one of the beautiful things of the Tzurba MRabanan. Actually, I saw a quote from the Rishon LeZion, Harav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita right now. They had a Tzurba Siyum recently near Eretz Yisrael. They finished their, the cycle of the Tzurba, and he was there to speak. And he said that that the Tzurba makes a mahapecha shel mamash to keep the Torah, to understand the halacha. This is what he said about the Tzurba MRabanan. So it's a really, when you learn it, you sit down, you understand, you go from halacha to halacha. It's beautiful. If you want, you can Google it. Put Rav Yitzchak Yosef Tzurba MRabanan, and you'll see his quote and what he says over there. Anyway, we're going to start Hilchot Kriyat HaTorah. We're going to start from Masechet Bava Kama, Daf Pei Bet, and this is the source one in Hilchot Kriyat Torah in the Tzurba, page 21. Asara Tikanot Tiken Ezra. Ezra, a Sefer, the great Ezra, brought us back to Yerushalayim. He made 10 Tikanot. His first Tikanah, Shekorim b'mincha b'Shabbat, that we should read the Torah at Mincha on Shabbat. B'korin b'Sheni u'b'Hamishi, and to read on Monday and Thursday. B'danin b'Sheni u'b'Hamishi, and to make bedtins on Monday and Thursday. Shayu korim b'mincha b'Shabbat, they would read Mincha on Shabbat. Why they would read? Mishum yoshvei kahanot, because those who sat on the corners, people who were wasting their time, we're going to understand what this means. Rashi is going to have a different understanding than then I believe it's the Rambam. Yeah, the Rambam. We're going to see what this means. That he shayu korim b'mincha b'Shabbat mishum yoshvei kahanot. What does that mean? Because of those who sit in the corners, we're reading by Mincha b'Shabbat. Anyway, shayu korim b'Sheni b'Hamishi Ezra tiken. The Gemara says Sheni and Chamishi, Monday and Thursday, that we're reading. We're reading because of Ezra. We actually made this takana to read Monday and Thursday a long, long time ago. Because it says in Pasuk, the Tanya, ve'ilchu shloshet yamim b'midbar, v'lo matzu mayim, right? V'lo matzu mayim, darshu rashomot amru, ein mayim el Torah, shneimar have kol tzema lechu l'mayim. So when we left Mitzrayim, 3 days we were without water. They started to complain. And we said, what's this water? Is that they didn't have Torah. So what happens? Kivan shalchu shashamim be'lo Torah nil'u, amdu nevi'im shebenehem, the nevi'im who were amongst them. Who was the nevi'im that were amongst them? Moshe, Aharon. That's the nevi'im. So obviously it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Tiknu lahem shayu korim b'Shabbat. They should read on Shabbat. Umasikim be'echa b'Shabbat, and do not read the Torah on Sunday. V'korim b'Sheni, and you read on Monday. Umasikim shishi u'v'revi'i, you don't read on Tuesday and Wednesday. V'korim b'Hamishi, and you read on Thursday. Umasikim erev Shabbat, and again you take a break on Friday. Kedei shelo yalinu gimel yamim below Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu already made a takana to read Shabbat, Monday and Thursday. This way you don't have 3 days that go by without reading Torah. Because if you don't read Torah for 3 days, it leads to problems. So now the Gemara has to explain. So what did Ezra do? What did Ezra do? What did Moshe do? You said Ezra made a takana to read Monday and Thursday. And now you're telling Moshe Rabbeinu made a takana. So the Gemara answers, Mi'ikara tiknu chad gavra telatap suke. Inami tata gavra telatap suke. Kened konim leviim v'Yisraelim. Atuti ken telata gavre v'asara pesuke keneged asara batlinin. So Moshe Rabbeinu, when he made the takana, either he made the takana, one person reads at 3 psukim, or 3 people read 1 pasuk each. Levi Yisrael compared to. Ezra came and said, no, 3 people and a total of 10 psukim. Usually our reading is a minimum of 10 psukim. Okay? The one time that it's 9 psukim, to my knowledge, is what we read Vayavo Amalek on Purim Day. And because it's 9 psukim, by us Svaradim, we repeat the last pasuk to make it 10 psukim. The Ben Shchai says to do. We read it again to make it a 10th. But usually we always have 10. This is the way Ezra is mitakin, that it should be, we should read, what's it called, 9, 10 psukim. Each aliyah has to be at least 3. We're going to see that later. Each has to be at least 3 psukim. And the total of 10, it should be minimum. So that's what Ezra was mitakin. So here we have it right now, according to the Bavli. The way it explains it is that Moshe Rabbeinu made that you have to read Shabbat, Monday, and Thursday. Shabbat, Monday, and Thursday. How much you have to read on Monday and Thursday? Either one person, 3 psukim, 3 people, 1 pasuk each. Ezra came and said 3 people, and each one should read 3, 3, 3, and one should read at least 4 to get to 10. Now, this is the Gemara. Now, Rashi explains, what's Mishum Yoshvei Karanot? What does this mean? Because the people sit on the street corners. Yoshvei Haniyot Kol Yemot HaChol, Oskim B'Sachora, Ve'en Korim B'Sherim Hamishi, Tikun Veganayu Kriyat Yetera. So Rashi explains very interestingly. Rashi says there are some people who are so involved in business all the time that they are unable to come to shul Monday and Thursday and to hear the Torah on Monday and Thursday. So because of them, we make an extra reading of Mincha and Shabbat, so they should hear a little bit more Torah. Now, it doesn't really help Rashi Pshat, because the whole thing was you shouldn't have 3 days that go without reading, right? That was the whole Pshat. So if you read them Shabbat afternoon, so I guess it's a little further down, right? It's not the whole Shabbat day. It's coming from the afternoon of Shabbat.
They're not going to come off.
Right. So here's something, at least hear another one at some point, right? A double dose, right? It's like double dosing on Shabbat. Somehow it gets you through the rest of the week. The Rambam gives another pshat. The Rambam pshat seems to be more posh than what the words mean. Moshe Rabbeinu tikkun Yisrael shayu korin b'Torah b'Rabim Shabbat b'Sheni b'Hamishi. Moshe Rabbeinu, he says it beferish. Moshe Rabbeinu, it doesn't just say like the Gemara that says Nevi'im shebenehem. He explains what does it mean Nevi'im shebenehem. Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu tikkun Yisrael shayu korin b'Torah b'Rabim. You should read it in public. B'Shabbat on Shabbat, b'Sheni on Monday, b'Hamishi on Thursday, b'Shacharit. Rambam interestingly puts Shacharit. Kidei shelo yishu shlosha yamim v'lo shmiat Torah. So you shouldn't have 3 days that you didn't hear Torah. Ve'ezati ken sheyuti ken. Okay, he says it twice. Ve'ezati ken sheyu korin ken kan b'mincha b'chol Shabbat mishum yoshvei karanot. Because of those who sit on the street corners. The way the Kesef Mishnah explains this, no, it should not the Kesef Mishnah. Hold on. Who explains it this way? Okay, hold on. Because of those who sit in the corners. He also said you have to read 10. Now, the way I understood them explaining this was, from the Rambam, is that because you have people sitting on the corners, wasting their time on Shabbat. He actually brings this in note 2. If you look in note 2 on the bottom of page 22, go halfway down through the note, you'll see where it says also Maharsha, Meiri, and Shita Mekubetzit, who interpret Yoshvei Karanot here as individuals who may engage in inappropriate activities or become drunk on the street corners on Shabbat afternoon due to boredom. They don't know what to do. They're not going to shul to say Tehillim. They're not going to shul to learn. So they don't know what to do. Therefore, they sit and get drunk. Therefore, in order to stop them, they made a gezerah, re Shabbat mincha. So now you have to come to shul to hear the Torah. So they're not going to be on the streets getting drunk and wasting time. This is the Maharsha, the Meiri, and Shita Mekubetzet. If you read Stam in the Lashon of the Rambam, Lashon of the Gemara, that's the Pashat Pshat. Make it on Shabbat, reading because of those who are sitting on the corner when? Not on Monday, Thursday, but reading on, sitting on the corner on Shabbat. So that's the way they explain this. Okay. Now, the Mishnah Berurah brings down Rishalmi. So we find in Rishalmi, Moshe Tikkun Lahem Yisrael Shekarim b'Torah b'Shabbatot b'Yom Tov u'Rosh Chodesh u'Chol Moed. That we read the Torah on Shabbat, Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh, and Chol Moed. This is what it says in the Yerushalmi. Now, in note 4 here in the Tzurba, he says that if you continue the Yerushalmi, it says that Ezra made Kriyat Torah on Monday and Thursday. But the Gemara that we read in the Bavli says Moshe Rabbeinu made Monday and Thursday. So the Rishonim say the Gemaras are not arguing. Yerushalmi and Bavli are not arguing. Rather, the Monday and Thursdays were originally made by Moshe. But Ezra made the number of aliyot required on these days. There should be 3 in the Psukim, like the Bavli concludes, like we mentioned above. So the Yerushalmi and Bavli are not arguing. Even Yerushalmi says Ezra is attacking Monday, Thursday. No, Ezra was attacking how to do Monday and Thursday. Moshe was attacking that you should read Monday and Thursday. Okay. Everything like we said so far. Now we have to deal with this issue. Is Kriyat HaTorah, the mitzvah to read the Torah on Shabbat, Monday, Thursday, Rosh Chodesh, Chol Moed, Yom Tov, is that a mitzvah deoraita, or is that a mitzvah derabanan? Yeah, of course, you have ramifications if it is, which way it is. So is it mitzvah deoraita or mitzvah derabanan? So there's the Gemara, Megillah, Daf Yud Zayin, and the Gemara there deals with the Psukim and Shema. It says Shema, and then it says V'hayu, right? So the question is, can you say everything in any language? Because Shema, however you listen. Or V'hayu, it has to be the way it's stated in the Torah, right? That's the machloket. And you have Megillah, Masechtas Brachos also, you have that issue of Shema, listen, or V'hayu, it should be as it's here, as it's be only in Hebrew. Rashi there, and part of the sugya, it wants to say that you can say it in any language, because it says Shema. And Rashi says, you can say it in any language. That means even reading the Torah. That you can read the Torah in every language. That's what Rashi wants to explain. What it means that you can read the Torah, it means reading the Torah on Shabbat and Yom Tov in any language. And he's basing it on Psukim because it says Shema. Tosafot comes and says, Pirush HaKuntrish, Shenatana likrot b'chol hashon, sherotzeh likrot b'sefer Torah, v'kasha, it's very hard to understand. Sharek Kriyat Torah, eno min Torah, el min midrabanan. Torah reading is only derabanan, the Tosafot says. So how could Rashi bring Psukim? Remember, if you're bringing Psukim, it means it's a Deoraita mitzvah. You're explaining the mitzvah from the Psukim. When it's a mitzvah derabanan, you don't use Psukim. Mitzvah derabanan, the Rabbanan said to do the mitzvah this way, and this way. Rashi, you're saying you can listen to Kriyat Torah, read Kriyat Torah in any language. You're saying that is Deoraita. Because you're saying using Psukim to say Shema means you can read in any language. But that's not true. Tosafot says, Beferish, the mitzvah is Derabanan, levad mi parshat Zachor, the have deoraita, except for parshat Zachor, which is deoraita. So the Tosafot says it clearly that it seems from Rashi that reading the Torah on Shabbat Yom Tov is deoraita. Tosafot says Beferish is derabanan. Now we come to the Bach, page 24, and the Bach says as follows. He says it's very surprising. The Perek Meruba Amr Moshe Rabbeinu Alav Shalom Tikim b'Midbar Shukorim b'Torah Eila Shabbat Ezra v'Tikin Talata. So Moshe Rabbeinu made that you should make the takana to read, and Ezra came and made you should read 3 people 10 psukim. Ovishami Nami Yitam Moshe Tikin Lehem Yisrael Shukorim b'Torah Shabbatot Yom Tomim Rosh Chodeshim Chol Shemoed Shnema V'Daber Moshe Et Modei Adonai Bnei Yisrael Mavil Harif the Perek Kari Ovid. So he says Moshe Rabbeinu made it. Who made the takana to read? Moshe. Hasha lefize vadai kol kriyat b'shabbatot min HaTorah ki pirush Rashi. The Bach says, Paskins, the Bach Paskins la'alocha, that kriyat Torah Shabbat Yom Tov is the Oraita, like Rashi says, because Moshe Rabbeinu was mitaken it. Who made the Sefer Torah? Who wrote it? Moshe Hashem told Moshe to write. He wrote it. So if Moshe made the takana, it's from Moshe's time. It's considered the Oraita. Elo shelo haya seder miuchad l'chol kriyat milvad pashat zachor. Even though like this, near the tzarech lezaher tafeh b'pashat zachor, she mitzvah meyuchedet ומפורשת בתורה, מה שאין כאן שאר קריאות שאינן אלא בעל פה, מפי משה רבנו עליו השלום. So the Bach wants to say, all the Kriyot are Doraita, and Parsha Zachor is Doraita, super Doraita. It's more extra, you can be more careful about it, but everything is Doraita because Moshe Rabbeinu was mitakin. So we have Rashi and the Bach on one side, we have Tosafot on the other side, there's the Rabbanan. Comes the Piskei Tshuvot. Piskei Tshuvot says, Al Pi Divrei Bach, Chiyuv HaKriya, B'Shabbat V'Yom Tov, Umidin Torah. Sharei Moshe Rabbeinu Tiknah. Emnan, however, Shah Gedulei Poskim, the majority of other Poskim, Haluku Alav. V'Ashem Moshe Rabbeinu Tiknah, Nichshevet L'Divrei Sofrim, V'Chetakanat Nevi'im. Even though the Bach has a good proof, he says it. However, most other poskim disagree with the Bach, and as such, Halacha L'Maaseh Piskei Tshuvot says that the Kriyat HaTorah on Shabbat and Yom Tov is considered as derabanan. The Bach says Doraita, but Halacha we hold that is derabanan. And here he brings Umarana Bet Yosef, and I'm reading from the Alta Yosef footnote. Hevi b'shem Rashbatz shekriyat b'tzibur himidivrei sofrim. It says divrei sofrim. So l'halacha l'maisa throughout everywhere pretty much holds. Old Klal Yisrael holds that reading Shabbat, Yom Tov, Monday, Thursday is considered a mitzvah derabanan. We're going to get into that not next year, probably this year after that. We're going to get into all that later. Let's stick to what we're doing today. Moshe Tiken, I'm going to read to you Alka Joseph's summary of this whole thing that we just went through. Moshe Tiken Yisrael Shukarim B'Torah B'Shabbos Shem V'Chamishi V'Shacharit. Moshe Rabbeinu was enacted. He should read Torah on Shabbat morning, Monday morning, Thursday morning. So you shouldn't have 3 days that go by without reading Torah. Ezra Sefer Tiken Shayukarin Shloisha Oilim. They should have 3 people go up. Asar Psukim. You should have at least 10 Psukim. They should Torah b'mincha shel Shabbat, and you should read mincha on Shabbat, like we said. Mishum yoshvei karna, because people don't know what to do. They sit in the corners, getting bored, getting drunk. So tell them to come to shul and hear Torah again, right? That's the Meiri, that's the Marshach, that's the Shita Mekabetzes. V'chama heina kayim. Now, this is something you should all know. You should all know. Shabbat b'shacharit karim shiv'a olim. It's not considered not including mafter. Shabbat always 7 with mafter. V'yom Kippurim, how many we take? How many aliyot? 6. V'yomim tovim, 5. V'roshei chodesh v'chol moed, 4. We have 3, right? Taniot, Shacharit Mincha, also 3. For Hanukkah and Purim, also 3. Okay, it's just good to know that offhand. By the way, another way to know this for us Faradim, when we take out the Torah on Shabbat morning, we sing. I think Oshaz will say it. HaTorah. How many psukim do we stay over there? How many verses do we read?
Probably 7.
We read 7 plus 1 from after. And on Yom Tov, we don't start from the beginning. We take off 2. Why? Because we're starting. And what do we do on the Yomei Chol if we know Tachanun? Just 3 psukim for the 3 aliyot. The words that we say, those psukim that we say, we take out, is corresponding to the aliyot. Okay, that's what we do. It's to give you to know how many aliyot we have. Okay, fine. Now, moving on further. That's right. Now, Kriyat HaTorah. We're going to now come to a machloket. We have to understand the chiyuv of the Kriyat. Is it a chiyuv al hayochid, or is it a chiyuv al hatzibur? What does this mean? Do I have to make sure I hear Kriyat HaTorah? And if I missed a few words, I have to go and hear it somewhere else, similar to Megillah. Megillah is a chiyuv al kol yachid v'yachid, right? If I'm in a shul and everyone heard, and I missed a few words, if I didn't make them up on time or whatever it is, I have to go and hear it again, right? Does that also apply to Kriyat HaTorah? Now, obviously, everyone's going to say, no, what are you talking about? I miss all the time. I don't have to hear it again. No one tells me I have to hear it again. But we have to see, is it a chiyuv hatzibur? That the tzibur has to hear it. The community has to hear it. And it's not a chiyuv al yachid. So we have to get into this. So let's start. Let's start with the Ravan. The Ravan, he is a colleague of the Tosafot, of the times of the Tosafot. He lives in the during the First Crusade in 1096. Okay, he was born 1090, so he's about 6 years old during the First Crusade. He corresponds with Rashi's son-in-law, Rav Meir and his sons, the Rashbam, the Rabbeinu Tam. He was very involved with all of them. So he says as follows. He says, Sha'alni achi Rabbi Chizkiah. My brother Rabbi Chizkiah asked me, HaKoreh b'Torah, lama omer l'tzibar, baruchu et Hashem ha'mevorach. Why do we start off the Birkat Torah, baruchu et Hashem ha'mevorach? Yivarech barakat Torah v'dayo. Just read Birkat Torah. Asher b'charbonu mikol ha'amim. Just read that. Why are you starting with baruchu? Ve'shavti loy. And I said to him, Ezra tikkun leYisrael shekarim b'Torah v'beit v'hei u'b'Shabbat. Ezra made it that you have to read Monday, Thursday, and Shabbat. V'hakoreh b'Torah motzi et hatzibur yidei chovatam b'kriyat. You see, the person who's reading out loud, he is yotzei the chov for every single body, for everybody. V'fikach harehu omer l'tzibur atem tzirchim levarech v'likrot kamoni tiskemu likrati v'lerachati v'tarachu imi v'hem onin u'mivarechin v'lechulan samechu chachamim shetiknu Moshe Shemar ki Shem Hashem Yekah v'atem havu gadol Elokeinu v'tarachu oti. So the Ravan says beautiful. He says everybody has a chiyuv to read the Torah. Everyone has a chiyuv to hear the Kriyat HaTorah. Therefore, I'll say Baruch Hu et Hashem HaMevorach. You all say Baruch Hashem HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. What are we doing when we're doing this? We're all being Yotzeh Archova through me, because you have to be Yotzeh, and I'm saying, do it with me. Let's bless Hashem together. So according to the Ravan, it seems to be there's a mitzvah al kol yachid ve'yachid, every single person, to read the Torah, to hear Kriyat HaTorah. Okay? This comes out from the Ravan. However, we're going to look now in the Ramban. Right? This is Nachmanides. No, this is source number 9, page 26. In his Milchemet Hashem, the Ramban says, Amar HaKotev, Hashnuim b'Mishnato, these things that we have in Mishnah and Megillah, Kulam Chovot HaTzibur, including Kriyat Torah, it's Chovat HaTzibur, ve'ena el b'mechuyavim b'davar. Only those who are responsible for it, but it's a Chovat HaTzibur. Al Megillah, Shem she'hatzibur chayav, kach kol yachid v'yachid chayav. So the Ramban comes right up and he says that's not true that it's a mitzvah al kol yachid v'yachid to hear the Torah. The mitzvah is on the tzibur to have Kriyat HaTorah, not kol yachid, not like the Ravan. The Ravan says everybody has to have yachid v'yachid. The Ramban says, no, it's in Kriyat, is on the Tzibur. So here he brings a tshuva from Rav Moshe Sternbach, and he asked as follows. So that's what he was asked. Yochid shloi shema kama tevot b'Kriyat HaTorah im chayav l'shmo b'makom acher. I came to shul listening to Kriyat HaTorah, and I missed a few words. I fell asleep. I went to the bathroom. I went somewhere else, and I missed a few words. Do I have to go and hear it from somewhere else? So he starts off his tshuva. Beker achiv Kriyat HaTorah avati mokem acher divrei hakodesh ha'ari. He brings from the Arizal Sefer Kavanot shezman meruba hitpalu etzlo tzibor v'lo shamu Kriyat HaTorah. That the Arizal davened many times with the tzibor and did not do Kriyat HaTorah, not on Monday, not on Thursday, not on Shabbat. Shahaya begalut v'lo b'mkomo. He was in galut. They were outside the shul. They were outside. They wouldn't have a place. The Lord till tell Sefer Torah, let's say, so he didn't take out a Sefer Torah. Not supposed to remove it from the shul, so pashut. It seems to be if the Arizal didn't do Kriyat Torah when he wasn't in the shul and he was davening with the tzibur, it must be that it's not so much a chiyuv on a yachid. Because if it's chiyuv on a yachid, you have to do it anywhere. Right? Rakol tzibur chayav in likro. The tzibur shalom malkamoy is not in its place. Leika chayuva. If you're not in the place, you don't have a chiyuv to hear the Torah. I'm Magen Avram, Simon Samech Tas, Sifkov Tas, or Ricky Simon. Okay. Then he brings the Yachid Shemit Starv Mikayim HaMitzvah. Now the Yachid who is with the Tzibor, the Mikayim the Mitzvah, of a Yisado Chiyuv L'Tzibor. The Yesod is a chiyuv for the tzibur, not from the Yachid. The Yachid's there, he's mitzvah from the mitzvah. He helps be part of the mitzvah. But the mitzvah is not on the person, the mitzvah is on the tzibur. Chemish Shulchan Aruch, Simin Kuf Mem Vav, Ita Sham, Yesh Asara, Detzete, Mutar Lilmod, Kishitorato Umunato. If there are 10 people listening, we're going to get to this later, but there are 10 people listening to Torah, and I want to learn Torah, and that's my professional job. I'm a professional learner. That means I'm sitting in Kol all day and I'm learning. And the Kriyat Torah, there are 10 people listening to it. I don't have to listen. I can learn because that's my professional job. And because it's a mitzvah on the tzibur and not a mitzvah on the yachid to hear Kriyat Torah. We're going to go more into this, B'ezrat Hashem, in Hilchot Kriyat Torah bet in the tzibur. Just for now to understand this. Nira, she'av kol echad tzarich leishtatef b'tzibur, sheni v'chamishi v'shabbatot, shekorim b'torah, kedei l'istaref b'tzibur, she'yitkayem hatakana likrot b'tzibur, v'chamor, and it's more important mitfilah b'tzibur b'alma. In fact, listening to Kriyat Torah b'tzibur is more important than davening in tzibur. We're going to see this. She'enu tekanat chazal kamohu, she'isod Kriyat Torah b'shem chamishi, tekanat Ezra. Davening came later in the tekanot. Right? It was korbanot. It wasn't tefillah we have. Tefillah came later. So the Ezra, which is more of a biblical commandment, somewhat tekanat sofrim, right? The Rashbam said, it's a bigger. It's more important than tefillah. The kol makom, when it started with tzibur v'lo shema hakol, person was part of the tzibur and they read the Torah and he didn't hear everything. Shuv ein lahatricho midai. He doesn't have to go out of his way to hear it. Sheisot takana kiyem can stir up with tzibur shekarin v'hita oznav l'shmoa. As long as he wanted to pay attention to it and he missed it, he doesn't have to go back. V'av shnei enas v'lo shema hakol v'lo kem kol mitzvah lo avar al takana. Lachein, therefore, al zeh lo chayevo shuv k'shezeh tircha yetira. Therefore, he does not have to go and hear it again when it's a big trouble. We're going to see this Gemara soon. The Gemara said that if the Nasi died, if the Nasi died, no one's allowed to go to Shul to daven. It's everyone's in Avilut. Everyone stays home and daven. But it says, Uva'u lebet knesset likriyat haTorah levad, shekol tzibur chayavin. Ayin sham hetev shezehu raya nifla shekriyat Torah hamor v'chayavin leistaref l'tzibur. So Kriyat Torah, to get Kriyat Torah with 10 people is more important than davening with 10 people. And it's a mitzvah on the tzibur. That's why you get together to hear the Torah, and you don't get together to daven when the Nasi dies. שחיסר כמה טבעו, בשם חמישי ולא שמע 9 פסוקים שלמים או בשבתות, נראה שאם נצטרף לציבור, ואותה אוזנו לשמוע אבי כתקנת עזרא, ואף שנאנס ולא קיים כל מצווה, על זה אין החיוב חמור כל כך, וישלם אותם מיד גם בעל פה, ולא ביטל עיקר תקנה להצטרף לציבור ולהטות אוזנו לשמוע. And he says, you missed it, you want to say it, even those words בעל פה, you want to say it afterwards, you can make it up. However, you did not mess up the takana, because the takana was to hear it b'tzibur. And we're turning to page 28. It's only for the tzibur to read it. Our job as a yachid is to become part of the tzibur and hear it, but it's not for us to hear it. However, if you're sitting there on the purpose you're not listening to it, then you're not doing your chiyuv. Your chiyuv is to become part of the tzibur and to listen. But it's not on you to listen, it's a tzibur to listen. So he says, the Sternbach ends off by saying, the minhag is, if you missed a few words, you missed something, people don't go back to hear it again, unless you're a big chassid, you're redactic in this, and then you want to go hear it somewhere else. It's a good thing to do, but it's a tircha, you don't have to do it. And so he comes out from Rav Sternbach that it is a mitzvah al hatzibur and not a mitzvah al yochid. However, now we're going to bring Rav Schachter on tefillah. I believe this is Rav Herschel Schachter from YU, and from Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan. Here he says, and by the way, it's not only, I saw afterwards in the Al Joseph that he brought the Chassam Sofer also used to do what this was. Listen to what he did. So when Rav Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik would travel to New York from Boston on a Monday morning, he was unable to hear Kriyat Torah before he left. He had to leave early on the train. He couldn't hear Kriyat Torah. So after he gave his shiur in the yeshiva, he would ask whether it was anyone else who had not heard Kriyat Torah in the morning, and he would make a minyan for mincha, and during mincha he read Kriyat Torah. Now, first of all, this goes smacking against the Rambam, right? The Rambam said beferish, you read b'sheni b'chamishi and Shabbat b'shacharit. The Rambam said the word shacharit. Okay, he missed it on shacharit. He made it during mincha, and he explained that this was based on his grandfather of Chaim Brisk. Rav Chaim Brisk held that the chovah of Kriyat Torah is not a chovah al tzibur, but rather it's a chovah al yachid, that every single person has to hear Kriyat Torah. So therefore, in Rav Chaim Brisk, when he was traveling in Europe and he missed Kriyat Torah one morning, he would do that. He would make a minyan mincha, and he would read the Torah at the minyan, because it's a mitzvah al hayachid, not on a tzibur. And I saw it brought down here in the Yalkut Yosef that he says that he also says it from other people that did it. And one of them he says was Chassam Sofer also used to do this. If he missed Kriyat Torah in the morning, he would do Kriyat Torah by mincha, because it's a mitzvah al hayachid on the individual. Okay, that's from Shachter, that's from Chaim Brisk, that's Chassam Sofer. They all seem to be saying that's a mitzvah aliyah. Now, we're going to see the Igros Moshe, Moshe Feinstein also says it's a mitzvah al-yachid. Not a mitzvah al-tzivur, but it's a mitzvah on every single person. Let's take a look at the Igrot Moshe in source number 12. For us, definitely, yes.
But what are we saying? How is different?
Most Ashkenazim, I think, also hold that it's tzivur. I think the Piskei Teshuvot that brings it. We'll see. I think I saw it from Piskei Teshuvot. I'm not sure. Let's take a look. Let's go slowly.
MRabanan.
Yeah, we're gonna get to it. I definitely see. That's why I go through the shiur beforehand, and then I check the Al just to make sure that everything is settled down. So although the Tzurba does an amazing job, I tell you, it does an amazing job. However, it's important to know it's not the final answer. It's not the final solution here. You have to look to know what our halachot are. This is a very good way to learn halacha. Halacha l'maaseh, you have to go to your posek, your shorish, wherever your thing is, and to get it from there. But let's see what he says here. He says, "V'davar Kriyat Torah, v'adai shetzarich kol adam l'shmo kol kriyat shlo yachzer lo af teva achad shelo shava." He has not everywhere. He has to hear every single word. He says, "U'v'diavad im hasad teva achad u'pasuk echad im kriyahu b'sheni v'chamishi u'mecha b'shabbat v'af b'kriyat yom tov talui im hu rak b'kriyat d'gimel psukim lo yotza ta'ein poitchem b'gimel psukim v'kivon shech shel shmoy af teva achad v'rei chasim b'gimel psukim v'havi kimo shelo shama el shnei karim shelo yotza v'kriyat b'yotim b'gimel im shama gimel psukim shleimim yotza." So Moshe Feinstein says it depends. If you missed a word or a pasuk, if that aliyah had 5 psukim and you heard the first 3 psukim, you're still yotza, because you have to hear at least 3. But if you had only 3 psukim in the aliyah and you missed the word or you missed the pasuk, you weren't yotza. Who did we say said you couldn't make it up? Yeah, we said that you right. We said that you could go back and hear it, and you could go back and also say it, but you have to say it. You have to say it in time. So okay, let's go further. Even though you have to hear 7, you had 7 alim, 7 people, 7 olim went up, but they didn't read the whole parsha. I read half the parsha, and you were yoitza the shiva olim. You weren't yoitza reading the Kriyat Torah. They read 3, and they didn't read the whole parsha. Now you have shiva olim, but you didn't have the parsha, right? Shemtzadze imi yuzeh yikarim ap mixat the parsha. Hakavua yotza memela haya gam ken cholik ben kriyat the gimel psukim the kriyat the harbe psukim they call makam. Hay yichsar loya pasuk shedilik bar teva the chosh ken kishloy shama pasuk shalom sheikah de'ein mitzad mina kavua chol oilam nigmor Torah b'chol shana v'shana. Ach she'ein lo etzel is that tzibur lo matichin lechazor odapam b'shvil yichidim. Rav Moshe Feinstein says the guy has no solution. If you missed the pasuk, you missed the word, the tzibur is not going to go back for you, and you have no way to be yotzeh your chov al yachid. You're stuck. Nothing to do. V'im yesh minyan shalem shechsiru l'shmo tzevot psukim. But if you have a whole minyan you didn't hear, yesh lahem achar tefillah kishloya shub tircha le'elu sheshmu kol kriya lechazar v'lekra b'bracha mekomot shechsiru l'shmo umitam zeh sheyavshar lechazar tzarich kol echel yishtadel l'shmo kol kriya v'lo yisir b'shmo af teba achad. So the Rav Moshe Feinstein says you got to listen to Kriyat HaTorah to every single word. You can't miss one word. He's talking about Shabbat. You don't read Megillah on Shabbat. He's talking about every single Kriyat. Monday through to Shabbat, according to the Igrit Moshe, you have to hear every single word. Okay, so far we have these two tzadim. We have these two sides. Is it a chiyuv v'yachid? Is it a chiyuv v'tzibur? Here, in the Tzurba on the bottom, in the orange box, he puts, if it's an obligation upon the tzibur, one does not need kavanah to fulfill the mitzvah when he's listening. Nor does the reader or the one receiving the leader require intent to fulfill the obligation for others. You don't have to be yotzeh others. It's a chiyuv tzibur. It's everything in one shot. But if you hold it, it's a yachin. Then if you missed a few words, you have to go back. But if it's a mitzvah, if it's a tzibur, you don't have to go back, right? Chiyuv tzibur, you don't have to go back. But if it's a mitzvah yachid, then you have to make up, even though it's not practical to make it up.
The guy who has going into the aliyah also has to have in mind the others.
Yeah, that's what the Ravan said. The Ravan said, when I say Baruch Hu, I'm telling everybody, you have all chiyuv, so bless Hashem with me, so we're all going to do it together. That's what the Baruch Hu is for, according to the Ravan. So we have this two stuff. Now let's see. We have Masechet Moed Katan, which we learned recently. Nasi Shemet. You had a Nasi, the head of the Sanhedrin, that he passed away. Bet Medrashot Kulan Batilim. You closed down all the Bet Medrashot. Betei Knesiot Uvnei HaKnesset Nichasin LeBeit HaKnesset V'Korin Shiva V'Yotzin. You read Shabbat, the reading, and you walk out. V'Korin Shiva B'Sefer Torah, Rashi says. The aim mitpalin yachad beit HaKnesset. You don't read together davening. Everyone reads at home, and then on Shabbat they come to the Torah and they come out, because we said Kriyat HaTorah b'tzibur is more important than Tefillah b'tzibur. So this is the Kana of Ezra, Kana of Moshe. Okay, so it seems to be that again from here it's a mitzvah al tzibur. Tzibur has to get together to hear Kriyat HaTorah, right? Because we're in Avelut. We're in Avelut because the Nasi passed away, right? The Avabetim passed away. So the Nasi, the head of the Sanhedrin, passed away. So we're in Avelut. We don't pray together. But Tzibur, Kriyat b'tzibur is more important, so you have to get together to hear that. Okay, now Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he wants to say that Kriyat HaTorah might also be a chiyuv al hayachid. So you have big, by the way, big heavyweights here. Rav Moshe Feinstein, right? You have Rav Hershel Schachter. You're having Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. But everyone wants to say that the mitzvah is al hayachid. Okay, so there's a big tzad to say that the mitzvah. We don't. In the end, we're going to say it's mitzvah al tzibur for us. But there's like powerful people on that side. Okay. Ach be'emet yesh lamer shekar beit HaKnesset kedei lo levatel beit HaKnesset legamrei v'lechem mevin tzibur beit HaKnesset u'mnachisin atzman lechovat Kriyat HaTorah. To be yotzer their chov, they come to Kriyat HaTorah. He brings the Rambam. The Rambam is okay. This is a very interesting Rambam. Listen to this Rambam. Shmoyne psukim shebesefer Torah muter likrot otam bebeit HaKnesset bepahot me'asara. The last 8 psukim of the Torah, you're allowed to read them with less than 10 people, the Rambam says. Why would it be different to the last 8 psukim and the rest of the Torah? His last 8 psukim talks about Moshe Rabbeinu's death, right? Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't write about his own death. We say it's written by Yehoshua, right? So it has a different madrega in Kiddusha. So the Rambam says, you don't have a minyan, you can read the last 8 psukim with the brachot and everything. So Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it. Alpha Pisha Kol HaTorah Hi Moshe Mipi Agvura Amram Hoyel Umashmin Shehem Acher Mitat Moshe Harei Nishtanenu V'Lefikach Mutar LeYachid Likrot Otan. The Rambam says a Yachid can read the last 8 psukim with brachot with no minyan.
Over Zot HaBracha, you mean, the parsha.
The end of his other bracha, the last 8 psukim of the Torah. This Rambam seems to be saying you don't need a minyan for those last 8 psukim. Just start without, because it's a whole different madriga. So according to the Rambam, minyan is not required when reading the last 8 psukim of the Torah because it described the events after Moshe Rabbeinu's death. Let's see what the Ravad says. The Ravad disagrees. He says, "Lo shemanu davar zeh me'olam." You never heard of such a thing. Mash amru yachid. What it means a yachid kara otan, because it's based on Yerushalmi. The Rambam is quoting Yerushalmi. He says, you know what the Yerushalmi means? Mash amru yachid kara otan lomar she'enu mafsik behem. We vehachi ita b'Yerushalmi Megillah. He says it means one person reads it. It means one person reads all psukim. You don't make aliyot in the middle of it, because it's about Moshe Rabbeinu's death. One person reads the whole thing. Uvamakot halalu nahagu shaolim likot b'Torah hu levado koreh ve'ena chazan koreh imo u'ma shekatav hu inyan zerot hu me'od ve'tzibor hechen halchu. The Ravad says, Rambam, where is the tzibor going? Up until now you had a minyan, and now all of a sudden no minyan. Oh, one person can read it. I'm making a shvav. Very true. Very true. Okay, so now the Kesef Mishnah wants to answer up this Ravad. To the Mashik Kosim, Shu Inyan Zerut, Yesh Loimer, the Mishkachat Le, Shayu Asar Bet Knesset, the Yotze Echad Mehem, or Shlo Yav Bet Knesset Eilot Test. He says one walked out to make Oshplo. So now you only have 9, or you only had 9 from the beginning. Right. That's not tell you read it. Now, the only issue with the Kesef Mishnah is we have a halacha lamaisa. I'm going to read to you from the Yalkut Yosef. It might surprise some people. What happens if I started Kriyat HaTorah and people walked out? How do I continue? What do I continue? Listen to what he says over here. We started reading. The Kohen got up. We started reading the Torah. The reading. And in the middle of the Kriyat, some people walked out. You still have 6. But 4 people walked out. Maximum 4 people walked out. You only have 6 left. Mutar le'olah l'sayem et ha-Kriyat. To finish the Kriyat. Ve'levracha bracha achrona al kriyato. And you can read the bracha after his Kriyat. But then he says further here in the Yalkut Yosef, ve'yamshichu ha-Kriyat. Continue the reading. And everyone should say the berachot before and after. All the aliyot, even though now the Kohen was only when you had 10 people there. Afterwards, 4 people walked out in the middle of the Kriyat. All 7 come up. All of them say berachot before and after, without a minyan. As long as you have 6 there.
I heard you continue, but I didn't know everything.
There are many arguments. Mishabur, I believe, doesn't hold like this, and many don't hold like this.
Then they're going to miss the Kaddish at the end.
Sure, you need Shemoilim. Right. The Kaddish is different. The Kaddish is different. The Kaddish, I believe he says the Kaddish you don't say afterwards. I remember looking at this. Did I highlight it? I thought I highlighted it, but no, I saw what he said. The Makil also said I have to look at it again. But if I remember correctly, he said it's not for the Kaddish.
I mean, either way, they need a minyan to finish the prayers. It's
He
the
brings
middle
over
prayer.
Indian Kaddish, they wouldn't say this Kaddish. Anyway, he brings here many shittot that argue He brings it in the footnote. The many argue with what, even in fact, they say that the Chacham Ovadia, first he said you shouldn't do this, and then later on he said you should do it. Originally he held that you should, all the 6 other olim should not go up with the brachot. And then later on he said they should go up with the brachot. So this is what now what people know to do is a different story. But if you want to know what to do, it's what it says here. Okay. So now the Kesef Mishnah is hard to understand. Kesef Mishnah said, what's the case? You had 10 people and one walked out. If one walked out, you could say the brachot, right? So Rav Soloveitchik, he wants to say, the Kesef Mishnah is saying, the Rambam's case is if 5 people walked out. So you're left with 5. You're left with 5. Now you don't have a minion. You definitely don't have, you don't even have right minion, right? You have nothing. And yet that's where the Rambam says you can still read the last Shmona Prakim with brachot. V'lechayra kasha. Rav Shlomo Zalman says, after Asar lo be'inyan b'shmonim psukim, for even though 10 men are not required for these 8 psukim, aval mikol malkom sham ikar chiyuv Kriyat Torah hu rak al hatzibur v'lo al ha'yochid ve'echi kra otama yocha b'bracha. How could you say with the bracha? Must be that the chiyuv is on the yachid. The Ratz Kitzvi, this is Rav Tzvi Reisman Shlita. He says you can't learn nothing from these last 8 psukim. You can't learn one way or the other. There's a show that a yachid is a chiyuv, or the tzibur is a chiyuv. He says as follows. Ulam l'char yesh l'tchot raya zo. Shekain he gufo l'shmoim psukim sheb'soif HaTorah yesh din v'chiyuv acher mishar psukim kriyas HaTorah. So it's completely different. Al kain ein lilmod migadri chiyuv shel shmoim psukim el gadri chiyuv kriyas HaTorah. You cannot compare the gather of reading the shmoim psukim to the gather of reading the rest of the Torah. So it comes out, he says you can't learn nothing from this Rambam, whether it's a chiyuv al yochid, chiyuv al tzibur. So we're left with a machloket. On one side, the Ravan, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Chassam Sofer, Rav Shachter, Rav Chaim Brisk. You have many who hold that it's a chiyuv al yochid. You had the Moshe Sternbach who said that it's a chiyuv al tzibur. What did Chacham Ovadia hold when it came to this question? If Kriyat Tibor is on the Kriyat Torah is a mitzvah on the Tzibor, or is Kriyat Torah a mitzvah al hayachid? So here's 2 halachot, and from these 2 halachot, we're going to extrapolate what he held. That's what he says. Yachid, shaya ones veitpalel b'yachidut. Someone couldn't pray in the minyan; he prayed alone. Mi'ikar halacha eno chayav lelechet lishmo kriyat sefer Torah b'tzibur. He does not have to go and hear it in the tzibur. You missed it, you missed it. You don't have to go back and hear it. Mishalo shema. It's the Kriyat Torah b'yemei sheni v'chamishi or b'Shabbat. Enu hiyav likrot the Kriyat mitoch chumash v'chedoma. You don't have to read it from a chumash from anything. Chen im hutzach latzet me'emtza Kriyat Torah. You have to leave in middle. The hefsed chelik me'akriyah. Enu hiyav likrot mashi yechser mitoch chumash. He does not have to read it from a chumash. You do not have to make it up. And here he says with Farish, he brings down from the Ramban, like we had in Milchamot, and from others, he brings down that that the Shita is, it's Kriyat Torah, is a mitzvah on the tzibur, like the Ramban. And he says here as well, Sharei chovat kriyah hi chovat tzibur v'lo chivot yachid. Ma sheyosh chovat shmi'ah. L'chein chovat tzibur v'lo yachid. So the whole mitzvah is to hear it. It's a mitzvah on the tzibur. And again, he says, "Shechovat kriyah b'Torah enu al kol yachid v'yachid, ela al kol al tzibur." So we see again, Chacham Ovadia held that it was a chiyuv on a tzibur. Yes, sir. Yes.
To begin with, are you allowed to read while the Torah is reading? You're allowed to come out with this speak while the Torah is out, Tamar is reading?
We're going to get to this in the next year, Bezat Hashem. But obviously, the kavod is pashut, simply understood. Kavod is a Torah is being read, you listen. That's the way it's supposed to be done. You stop, you listen, don't do nothing else. Whether you can leave for a tzarech, so you have to leave. You're not a tzala member, or your child fell outside, or whatever it is, you need to attend to is right away. So then you go to it. Other than that, you should be sitting. between the Olim, between the readings. Yeah, we'll get into that B'ezras Hashem in the future. I just wanted to go back to one thing. We had here from Rav Chaim Brisk, Yosheber Soloveitchik, that if they missed Kriyat Torah and Shacharit, they read it again. They read it at Mincha. What does Chacham Ovadia hold on this? So here in Yaakov Yosef, Yitzchak Yosef brings down as follows. His case is as follows: Po'alim, mashkimei kum umitpalim koecha bebeito kishmi azman tefillah ve'enu korim b'Torah. Asur lahem lohatzi sefer Torah be'yemei sheni v'chamishi b'mincha. He says asur for them to take out a Torah during Mincha. You missed it Monday and Thursday for whatever reason. Asur, take it out. B'shuva ma'avodatam le'et erev im rotzim l'no kan b'derech keva. If it's something they want to do fixed, they want to do it every week, every time. And Monday, Thursday, they want to read it Monday, Thursday. He says then it becomes asur. Shebevadai she'ein lekor sefer Torah b'shlosh ha'olim u'b'Torah b'mincha she'ikar takanach hachamim hayta b'sheni v'chamishi b'shacharit dafka. That's what the Rambam said. He said it has to be in the morning, not in the afternoon. Okay, we said ulam im osim kan b'derech arai. If they did this once in a while, they're not doing this every time. Once in a while they do that, and we don't stop them. They're going to read Mincha, Kriyat Torah, because they missed it in the morning. Once in a while, it's okay. We're not going to stop them. But he says, they have what to rely on, because you have all these other tzad that says it's chayv ala yachid. If it's a yachid, then you have all day to do it, right? If someone comes and asks the Rav, can we do this? Morim lo deshev al taseh adif af b'derech hakrai. Tell him that no, you don't do this, even if it's a temporary thing. To read it by mincha. Someone says, I miss shacharit. Can I read the Kriyat Torah by mincha? A couple people missed it. We want to read it by mincha. We tell him no. He asks us, we say no. If he doesn't, we don't stop him. If it's once in a while. Like definitely, it's asur to do it on a permanent basis. To read it at mincha instead of shacharit. Like the Rambam said, the kana is to do it at shacharit. Okay, this was the big. So we came out for us Faradim. We came out so far with two dinim. We came out that the mitzvah of Kriyat Torah is MRabanan. It's on a bigger level than tefillah. This is what we understood because it's from Sofrim, from Ezra Sofer. It's greater importance than davening, Kriyat Torah. Just understand that. Listening to the Torah reading is greater importance than davening. That's A, that we learned, but it's not the oraita. And B, we came out that the chiyah is on the tzibur, on the community, and not on the yachid. Okay? So far, so good. Now we're going to come to the next question. Are women required to hear Kriyat HaTorah? The women have to hear Kriyat HaTorah. So, very interesting Magen Avram. Magen Avram says, Mashma Mikan, from Megillah, Daf Chav Gimel, the Isha chayevet lishmoa Kriyat HaTorah, that a woman has to hear Kriyat HaTorah. The Magen Avram says a woman has to hear Kriyat HaTorah. Even though originally they put it because of Talmud Torah, and then Talmud Torah, women are not obligated like men to learn Torah. We call Malcolm mitzvah lishma kimo mitzvat hakel shanashim v'hatav chayivim ba. V'chan, he says, however, in his city, wherever he lived, v'chan hagu anashim letzeet chutza. However, in his shul during Kriyat Torah, the women walked out. So even though, I don't feel bad if I say something and people don't listen. The Magen Avram held that the women should listen to Kriyat Torah, and they all walked out on him. Now in the notes, he says, the Magen Avram says, why is this? Why is a woman chayav? He says, because the Gemara says that lahalacha, really, a woman is allowed to get an aliyah. If a woman's allowed to get an aliyah, then she should hear the Torah. Now we don't give the woman to get an aliyah because it's not covered at tzibur, right? We already saw for Chamavadi, it's not because of kol erva that he didn't say it was. Even if she read it with ta'amim, still not considered a kol erva. However, it's because it's not covered at tzibur. So he says if she's chayiv, she can get an aliyah, she has to hear the Torah. He also brings down in note 17, the Magen Avram says, Mesechet Sofrim says that women are obligated to listen to the Sefer. That's what it says.
Just to go to read.
She could go up to read. Technically, we don't do it. We don't do it. It's not done. Not done. Okay. Not only it's not done. Not only it's not done. You should know Chacham Ovadia takes a very strong. You should know that Chacham Ovadia takes a very strong stance on women participating in minyan in any such way that looks like reformers. He says nowadays, because nowadays you have reformers, the women of the wall, and all these things. They try to read the Torah. They try to say Kaddish, even though technically a woman may allow to say Kaddish. There's those who held it was okay, and even Chacham Ovadia, they say at one point said it was okay for women to say Kaddish, and even to get an aliyah. All these things are technically permissible. He says today, you cannot do it at all because you're giving credit and you're showing that the reformers are right. Therefore, you have to make a distinction. You make a havdil between us and them, and you're not allowed to do it at all, even though it may be technically permissible. Somebody takes this stance. I saw it now in a couple of places in the Yalkut Joseph. Keep saying the same thing because the reformers, we have to take a very big stance, and we don't let them. Okay. Anyway, this is the Magen Avram. This is what he held. Let's take a look. Now, what was the reason? What was the reason the woman walked out? The Tzurba, the editors of the Tzurba want to say the woman walked out and didn't listen to Kriyat Torah because they didn't understand it. They didn't have Chumashim like ours, like have translations and stuff like that. They didn't understand it, so they walked out. Now, let's take a look in the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says, "V'nir li de lav chiyav gomer." When Mesechet Sofrim said they have to hear the Sefer, it says the women have to hear the Sefer. It says it doesn't mean it's a chiyav gomer. You don't have any mitzvah that it's a zman grama that's time bound. Then Kriyat Torah. Kriyat Torah is 9:45. It's a certain time. What the woman can't come. It's not compared to hakel. Shetzivata Torah hakel et ha'am ha'anashim v'anashim v'atav. Shezui mitzvah miyuchedet pam l'sheva l'shiva shanim. It's once in 7 years. She'amelech ba'atzmoi, the king himself, koreh sefer mishnah Torah. He reads sefer devarim. Shehem divrei kovshin. It captures the soul. Aval shene'emar shemiyuchedet b'chol shabbat b'kriyat Torah. Badai hu milta ditmiya. It's a very big confusion. U'maseh b'chol yom yuchicho. And the proof is, look what goes on. Because the women are impossible to hear it. So he says, you see, women don't come, women don't listen. Cannot be a chiyuv. They want to say, the Aruch wants to say that Mesechet Sofrim said it's a mitzvah to hear the Sefer for the women. It's a mitzvah, not legamra. You don't have to do it. Second, he says they want to say that a Sefer actually means the Megillah. This is where he says the Sefer, and Mesechet Sofrim says the women have to hear the Sefer. It means to hear the Megillah and not actually Sefer Torah. However, he brings him from Rav Hershel Schachter, Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Shebei Yitzchak Elchanan, and he says, "Ve'afilu l'dat hacholkin al Magen Avram hanisker le'el mikol makam ilu bala beit haKnesset hayu mikayimot al kol panim mitzvot Kriyat Torah b'Torah eno mitzvah ve'oseh." Someone who's not commanded and does the mitzvah, he still gets schar, still gets reward. So a woman who comes and hears the Torah, even though she doesn't have a chiyuv, still gets schar for this. This is the same stance that the Yalkut Yosef takes with Nashim. He says, "Ein Nashim chayavot lebol beit haKnesset l'shmo Kriyat Torah." Women are not required to come to shul to hear the Torah. Mikol makom yesh nehagot mimidat chasidut. However, we have some righteous, pious women. They come Monday, they come Thursday. Obviously, they don't have little children at home, and they come Monday, Thursday, and they come Shabbat. You know, Chaim Kanevsky's Rebbitzin, she would daven 3 times a day in shul. Okay, so you have such great people. Shabbatovim tovim kidei l'shmo Kriyat Torah b'tzibur, to hear it with the tzibur. So if a woman could come, asad chasidut, it's good for her to come and hear Kriyat Torah, and she gets the schar as someone who is not mitzvah, not commanded, and still does the mitzvah.
There's nobody saying that who can read Torah.
Technically permissible. We do not do that today.
There's nobody. You don't read it?
I'll read it for you. I'm not here.
There's nobody to read.
It's not possible. today, nowadays, you don't have that. No one cannot read.
Phone can.
It says today, there's, can you read Hebrew? I can read. Everyone can read the letters. You have a Samech next to you who'll feed you the words and you read it. You don't take the woman. It's not done. It's not done today.
Not so long.
As nothing to do with sneers. It's nothing to do with sneers. Sneers is the Gemara says it's fine. Even hearing her voice is fine. It's not considered an erva. We don't do it. Chachamim says we don't do it because not to give support to the reformers. We don't do it also because of cover the tzibur, right? But he's saying in a case where you don't have. So that's it.
Then
10 men.
10 men don't know enough. One woman knows.
There is something studying that.
Come on, this is the most.
That's the biggest bushas at tzibur. Rather don't read it. No, but today again, you don't. I never found a place where no one knew how to read it and the woman knew how to read it. First of all, the majority of women don't know how to read it. The majority of them don't know the timing. They don't know anything. So they never read it. What are they going to know how to read? It's today you don't find that. You know, a mole. In the olden days, the women were more learned. The ones who the children of the rabbis. Yeah, Bruria, such people. They knew. Okay.
She wasn't Beta Midrash. She was, but she's. Yeah.
They have also.
Why are you not learning?
Devorah, right? The Devorah Neviah.
Yeah.
She was a shofet. She was a judge. She was asking shilas.
Even though I don't know if she was.
Right. There are the question will say she wasn't completely a shofet and stuff like that.
Yeah, she was Tahasais because
Right.
of Yichud.
Yeah. There's a lot. We'll get into that. When we get to that parak, we'll deal with it then. But there is such a yonim.
There is this question.
There is such a young. There's also they brought down. I remember seeing somewhere they say that in Morocco there was a woman who was very knowledgeable and people used to come and ask her and she gave shiurim to men. Again, maybe once upon a time it happened. Today, Baruch Hashem, you have the internet and you have everything everywhere. You want to know how to read the Torah? You have YouTube. You could Kriyat the Torah from Hazan. The most all the Hazanim. Where Moshe Habusha is on the. You can listen to every Kriyat Torah, every Haftarah. Everything is there. You can just listen to it and learn it. Hey, everything's there. You have Ashkenaz Minhagim, you have everybody's stuff, everything's there. There's no reason to say that a person could not know. Okay? Everyone is practicing with that. Even though technically it's permissible, again, we do not do it as Kavla Tibor, and also because Chamavadja's reason is not to give any support to any of those groups who do it on purpose to try to do these type of things. We don't allow for that. Okay. We have one last sugya before we close up for tonight. This is standing up when the Torah comes out of the Aron HaKodesh. They asked a question in Maseches Kedushin, Mahu la'amod mipnei Sefer Torah. Are we to stand in front of the Sefer Torah? Page 35. Rabbi Hilkiah, Rabbi Simon, Rabbi Elazar Amrei, Kal v'chomer, the Kal v'chomer. Those who learn Torah, we have to stand for them. Halavai, we should all be zeichet to stand for people who learn Torah. So for the Torah itself, you don't stand. If you stand for Timin Chachomim, you definitely have to stand for the Sefer Torah. Listen to the Shulchan Aruch. Haroeh Sefer Torah kishehu mehalech. Someone who sees the Sefer Torah while it's going on its way. You have to stand in front of it. Until he gets to his place, or until he can no longer see that person carrying the Sefer Torah. So once the Sefer Torah is in transport, right? You have to be standing. When the Sefer Torah is in transport, you have to be standing. The Ramah adds on, but if a person is carrying a chumash, you don't have to stand. However, there are those who are very machmir and stand even when you're carrying a chumash. Not me, it's the Ramah. Hashomea kol, then he adds on, Hashomea kol, I didn't say anyone do it, but the Ramah says that those are machmirim that stand up when you carry a chumash. Hashomea kol hanoseh sefer Torah. If you heard the Sefer Torah moving, not that you see it. Shulchan Aruch said you have to see it. Here the Ramah says if you hear the Sefer Torah moving, you don't see it, you have to stand up. Okay. If you just open up the Aron HaKodesh, we're going to get to this as a Taz. We're going to look at that in a minute. It really depends on the construction of the Aron HaKodesh. Okay? It's going to have to be 10 tefachim from the ground up, and it's going to have to be Dalet Amot wide, because that makes it its own reshut. It's its own domain. Since it's in its own domain, therefore you don't have to stand in front of it because it's in its own separate place. But if the Aron is less than 10 tefachim and it's not Arba Amot, then it's technically in your domain. You might have to stand there. The Shulchan Aruch, though, he said mehalech when it's walking. So if it's in its place, seems the Shulchan Aruch say you didn't have to stand. We're going to have to deal with this. Let's go slow, step by step. Beit Yosef brings down the Chatav Harav Manoach Dehu Adin Hashomei Et Kolo Af B'Shein Ro Chayav LaAmod Ve'Imkei Nohagu LaAsot Pa'amonim. Therefore we make Pa'amonim. Therefore we make the Rimonim. We have Rimonim on the Torah. Why? So people should hear it moving and know to stand up. Know to stand up. Raya me the Rabbi Tarfon. When he heard the footsteps of his mother, Amar Akum, he said, I'm going to stand up for the Shechina. Right? Rabbi Tarfon, when his mother would walk by, he says, who created me? Hashem, my father, mother. So they're all on the same level, right? They have to respect them. Therefore, my mother's walking. I have to get up. So he heard his mother walking and he stood up. So if you hear the Torah moving, you have to stand up. That's the Raya L'Dover. The Aruch HaShulchan says, he had a question. The Rimonim are making noise on Shabbat. Isn't that making music? Now I make music on Shabbat. So he says, Rabbeinu Harama, it's based, the Shmoya Kol Hanuseh Sefer Torah, Pisha Ein Roy Oto, Chayav La'amod, Al Ken Lo Shonoi. V'hainu Kisheyesh Pa'amonim, Hamikash Kishim, Umashmiim Kol, V'nugim B'zeh, Heter B'Shabbat. They gave a heter on this on Shabbat. V'af Sheyesh Mefak Bekim B'zeh, Meshum Meshmiya Kol, Komokum Kvar Nahagu Heter. Aruch HaShulchan says, we already have a heter. So don't get all excited. Oh, you're making music. Don't use the Rimonim. There's a heter to use the Rimonim on Shabbat. Okay, now going back to the Sefer Torah. Listen what he says from the Turei Zahav. This is the Taz. Kesha Sefer Torah Alabima. Nira hu halacha nami ala shulchan shu gavoy meyud tvachim v'roichiv arba. If it's high 10 tvachim and it's wide 4, shegam hu reshut mipnei atzmoi shein tzarchin la'amod. The gam bezman shasei Torah menuchim ba'aron hakodesh av bishu petuach, even though it's open, el sha'olam osin kan derech kavod la'amod kol sha'aron hakodesh petuach en chayuv b'davar. So the Taz says your question. Taz says that when the Sefer Torah is in the Aron and it's 10 tvachim by 4, it's in its own domain. You technically do not have to stand when the Aron is open. The whole reason to stand is when it's moving around, not when it's just open. The reason why we stand when we open the Aron is alt kavod. We're doing it as kavod for the Torah, so we stand up. That's what the Taz says, right? However, I still brought down that Chachamim and Tamid Chachamim should not be makel in this and sit when the Aron is open, because then the Hamon Am is going to say, the Chachamim are sitting, we can definitely sit, and they come a whole bizoyim. So therefore, Chachamim have to stand up for sure, and this way you keep the kavod. But technically speaking, the mitzvah to stand seems to be when you're in transport, you're in transit, not when it's resting on something that's yud tvachim by 4. Now, and that's what the Yigash Moshe says as follows: Chol zehu medina k'shasefer mekayma be'aron ain't tzarich lo mipano. If it's sitting in the Aron, you don't have to stand in front of it. Avol nahagula amoy k'sha'aron hakodesh patuach me'ezatam kigoyin shekipotchin ha'aron limrad sher kavod b'Shabbat. Because when they say the Ashkenazim at the end of Shabbat, the morning, they say anim bizmirot, right? So they open the Aron and they say it. At that point, everyone stands up, and because you're opening the Aron. The Ayin b'Taz, we just wrote that Taz. Shekadosh ha'olam oisin kan derech kavod la'amod kol sha'aron hakodesh patuach ve'ein chiyuv b'davar. And there's no chiyuv. So when the Aron is open, there's no chiyuv to stand. Just covered. כוונתו משמע שאין חיוב מדין בדבר, אלא מנהגה עומדין, היינו שחיוב כדין מנהגים טובים איתה. אך שבכל מקום שייך לפרש בכוונת התז, שאין חיוב בדבר גם במנהגה. It's not even a minhag. אלא מעלה בעלמא. Rather, it's only a good thing. בדורות האחרונים, היה עושים על דת אבותיהן, ולא התחייב מצד עצמן. And we didn't take it as a חיוב. שלכן אין בזה חיוב מדין מנהג. It's not even a minhag. The English Moshe says not even a minhag. It's just a good thing that we do. It's not a minhag, not a chiyuv. It's just a good thing that we do, that we stand up when the aron is open. And then he brings the Ramah over here. ובמקומות שמצניעין אותו בהיכל, שהוא הארון בית הכנסת, מצווה לכל מי שעוברת לפניו ללוותה. It's a mitzvah to escort the sefer. You know, by us, Sefaradim, Baruch Hashem, we always do that. We always come close. We're always going around it. Sometimes you go to some other shuls, you'll see people are just standing at their seat. It's not what should be done. You should come over to it. עד לפני הארון שמכסין אותנו שם. ויש שכספו שמביאים התינוקות לנשק התורה, כדי לחנכם ולזרזם במצוות וכן נוהגים. Bring the children, let them kiss the Torah, show them the respect and everything that should be done. I remember Rabbi Reisman, Rosh Yeshiva, once said that one afternoon, he met Rabbi Cohen, one of the Sephardic Rabbanim in his community where he lives, and they both had a complaint that day. Rabbi David Cohen said that in my shul, everybody, when the Sefer Torah comes out, everybody tries to escort the Sefer, that people are bumping and hitting into each other because so many people are trying to go and escort it. Rabbi Ivan said today I had the same complaint, but the other side. In my shul, no one's escorting the Sefer Torah. It's going by itself. Nobody's coming after it. So, you have some places like that. The mitzvah is to go after it as much as you can. Obviously, if people are in the way, you shouldn't push them and stuff like that. But as far as you can go with it, you should go. Mishnah Berurah says, people go to Torah. You're not allowed to bring it to the people.
Yeah, they bring to the women's section.
That's definitely should not be done. You can bring it next to the women's section. Women shouldn't really. They should just go like this. Okay, they shouldn't get too close to it. Not that it's asur. I'm not saying it's asur for them to touch it. You know what I'm saying? It's not the derech. You're supposed to take it to the bima, but you're not supposed to go to every single person. You can go a little bit to try to get more people to do, but you shouldn't go to everybody and say kiss. You make a bigger. We're going to see. I remember seeing it somewhere here. We'll have to take a look at it. It says you should not go to everybody to go kiss it. That's not a derech eretz to the Torah. People should come to it. But if you're in such a shul that if you're going to go quick and not everyone's going to get to it, they might want to go a little slower, a little longer. So this way, more people can get to it, but not going to them. Okay, fine. The Mishnah Berurah adds on, someone is standing outside. Someone is standing outside, and he sees in the window that the Sefer Torah is coming out. Mitzvah lichanes lebeit knesset lirot kishemotziin umachnisin Sefer Torah mishum berov am hadrat melech. Mishnah Berurah says you're standing outside and you hear the taking out the Torah. You see the taking out the Torah. You gotta come in to escort the Torah, and not say I'm outside. Berurah says you're outside. You gotta come in. Okay. What about the Piskei Tshuvot and the Yalkut Yosef? We'll look at. What about? Oh wow, what's this one? It's 9:45 already.
Yeah.
Okay, just to finish up really quickly, Piskei Tshuvot says that on Hakafot, you go around on Hakafot, you're walking around with the Torah. Are you allowed to sit during that time or not? So he says, Piskei Tshuvot says it's permitted to sit. It's only usher to sit when they're taking out and returning the Sefer Torah. That's the time that you're not allowed to sit. But if you're going Hakafot, you're allowed to, as Piskei Tshuvot. However, Chamovadia, the Yalkut Yosef brings down, he's very, he says, it's Chayavim Kol HaTzibur L'Amoy during Hakafot. You have to stand during Hakafot. Ve'ein lahem l'shevet be'et Hakafot. You're not allowed to sit down, because he considers that carrying around during Hakafot is considered carrying, and therefore, it's a mitzvah, you have to stand up during that time. And he says, those who can't stand, they can sit between hakafa to hakafa. Between hakafa to hakafa, they can sit in between. But otherwise, they should be standing. Just to finish off over here, 134:15. and the Yalkut Yosef. V'shat shemolchin Sefer Torah el teva. When you take out the Torah to the teva, tzrichim, you have to tzibur la'amod b'nei Sefer Torah. Ad she'noseh Sefer Torah yamod k'shegil mikom, until you bring it to its place. Or ad she'yitchaseh me'eneim, or until you don't see it. V'akach hayom moterin l'Shabbat, moterin l'Shevet, and then you can sit down. V'aminig la'amod gam b'shah shemegvihem Sefer Torah la'arot ha'ketav l'tzibor ad shemenichim Sefer Torah el teva. The minhag is to stand up also when you're doing Hagba, or doing the Hagba, and when you're doing Zot Torah, and then you sit down after that. Okay, and this is the dinim of Hilchot Kriyat HaTorah so far. Bez Hashem, next week we'll continue with Hagba, and we'll finish Shir Aleph. Okay. That's all. Kadosh Baruch Hu. Azago Yisrael. Azago Yisrael. Figure Shemon Moshe Adonai Haves Laman Tzego Yidit Torah v'Yadir. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.